Welcome once again to the Cow Report. Fred, you know, it's almost as if we disappeared from the face of public access earth.
Is that right?
We're back finally on live after all these months and weeks of inactivity.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I know you've been out actively campaigning for your friends and neighbors, and I've been running around all over the 3rd Congressional District, but just want to welcome you once again, Fred, to the show, and glad to see you. And boy, we got a lot to talk about today.
Yes, we have lots to talk about, and we'll say greetings to our viewers.
And of course, now this program is brought to you by the fine folks at Flavin and the wonderful world of Flavin Pop.
By Fred's Best Pop.
Yeah, we're going to see to that in the... we got the premiere show coming up, Fred, next week at 9 p.m.
You do?
And we're going to see what we can do about eliminating that stuff over there.
Well,
because that's an unsponsored sponsor of the program.
Well, that's good. You can see it's not cloudy like the slop that you have in your bottle. Right, nice and clear.
I see you got your war wounds all healed up. Are you ready for the invasion or what?
Here the cow seems to be getting fat on the Fred's Best Pop.
Yeah. Now tell me about that, Fred. How your war wounds healing?
Well, they're healing.
Okay.
See this here?
Yeah.
That's where I tripped. You know, something I'm glad you brought that up. I got that. I had 2 signs out in front of the Aplex I live in. One was for Bob Welch and the other is for Fritz. Well, I lost the Fritz sign the first time I put it out. Then I got 2 more signs. I put them out. And I was advised to take him in at night. Well, when I went out to take him in, somebody had taken him out of the ground and thrown him out by the curb. And the next night, and I put him up again the next day, the next night I came out and they were gone. And I say nice, it just became dark. Now, I was told that somebody in a car came by, come over quickly and took the signs, and I don't know who, and that was for Robert Welch and Helmut Fritz. Fritz is running for the 31st Assembly seat, and Welch is running for the Republican nomination for senator. Seems to me strange. There are Kreibich signs a few blocks away. There are Petrick signs. They weren't touched.
Well, aren't Welch and Fritz, aren't they both fairly conservative?
Yes.
That could be your problem, Fred.
They're good pro-life, pro-family, pro-decency people. And this is another thing that I'm very concerned about. You know, several years ago, and I say back about 10 years ago, I opposed abortion, but I didn't do anything about it. But I had a daughter who had an abortion back in '71 when it was illegal. And she lost 2 jobs as a result of that. And when she lost her second job, it was a while before she got another one. Her mother and I had to go up to the cities and pay her safety deposit so that she could get an apartment. Now, the pro-family or the anti-life, pro-death choice people didn't come and help her. Didn't do a darn thing. Well, I didn't know about this until about 10 years later when she began to fall apart. And she had to go for counseling. And it was during her counseling sessions she found out that her problem was that abortion. And I know I was up there one day. I come up there to spend a day and have dinner with her around holiday time. And she said, I killed my baby. And she started to cry and sob hysterically. She told me to go, Dad. She says, I'm not fit to talk to anybody there, and I don't want to talk to anybody.
Well, you know, Fred, we're going to have a close-up on this camera fairly soon.
Yeah?
Not right now, but eventually. But, Fred, why don't you stand up and let's see the color coordination. I'm telling you, Fred, it never ceases to amaze me how you can coordinate all those different clothing, just fit to be for a tee or whatever.
Thank you very much.
For the tee off down at the golf course or something there. The only thing that's a little off is the hat. But I noticed you even got a piece of blue in your shirt to
Right,
cover that.
blue, and
And you got some red in the hat to cover the
Yeah.
red in your shirt. So you can't be fooled.
right.
Now, do you do this all by yourself, or
You
does
betcha.
Betty help you any?
You betcha.
Does Betty double check before you leave the house?
Well, she probably looked at it, but we were in kind of a hurry today.
All right, now, Fred, as usual, we try and stump you on this program. Stump the stars, and since we don't have a guest today, Fred, you're the star. Now, you've been batting 1,000 here with the baseball strike. You're the only game in town, so let's see if
Yeah.
you can keep that 1,000% batting average there. Now, today's date is what?
Today's date. Well,
It's the day
that's a
before
good
the election.
question. It's the 12th.
That's right. Still batting 1,000. Okay, Fred, on this date, September 12th, 1953, probably a hot Massachusetts afternoon, a young couple go into the altar. One of them ends up being president. The other one ends up marrying the richest man in the world. I ask you, what couple is it? 1953.
1953. That's
One ends up being the
well,
president.
that was John F. Kennedy.
That's right. You're still batting 1,000, Fred. I just can't get over how you know all these answers. I don't know. Did you look in my briefcase before the show started for that, or what?
No.
Okay. Well, Fred, you know tomorrow is election day. You've heard that, haven't you?
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess the Chippewa Herald came out with an endorsement, Fred, in the 68th Assembly race.
Right.
Now, if you've been watching public access today, you've already seen the two Democrats in a kind of a forum on public access a couple hours ago, and I don't think there'll be one for Laufenberg and Dickinson, because I don't think they ever really squared off in a debate-style discussion.
No, I don't think.
But anyway,
think Wayne wishes to appear in a debate.
anyway, the Chippewa Herald in yesterday's edition endorsed Wayne Laufenberg for the 60th Assembly race. It's the only real endorsement I've seen this for a primary. I watched quite a few of the papers, and that's the only one I've gotten.
Well, you know, when you look at this, Wayne tried last time and he missed by 171 votes, and like Dave Zien, who when he first ran, he missed too, and missed by 100 and some votes also. So Wayne has the name recognition. He also has is a man, I think, who's well qualified, more qualified than many candidates who run for any public office, because not only has he worked for two governors, he's headed a government department, and he is head and shoulders above the others who are running. He's a man who will, he's a man of principle besides.
Well, you know, that's what this editorial says, the final paragraph says. Clearly, Laufenberg is a man of ideas and principles. He could be an asset for the residents for the 68th Assembly. That's why he wins the Herald Telegram's endorsement for the Republican primary, too. And for a paper to do endorsements in a primary is unusual, so they must really think a lot about Wayne. Well, that's one endorsement, Fred, and that's, like I say, that's the only one we've got here. Now, I know, as usual, you usually have something to talk about, Fred. And
yeah, there's lots of things to talk about, to be very frank with you. And you know, one thing I think is most important in this election, that people who are going to vote, and hope everyone does vote in the primary, should be voting on principle and principle alone, because if a man doesn't know right from wrong, or a woman, then they don't deserve your support. They're not morally qualified. And that's one problem we have. We send people who are not morally qualified to Washington and to the state, and they spend money we don't have for things we don't need, and we keep spending and spending. The deficit keeps going up. I listened to John Ankerberg last night on the Family Channel, and John Ankerberg had Larry Burkett. He had a number of Congress people, including Tom DeLay from Texas, former Congressman Dannemeyer, Congressman Phil Crane, Congressman Dick Armey, And they're all talking about the coming financial crash if we don't stop spending money we don't have. We got to get the deficit under control.
You hear Roy Rogers Hoff breathing heavily? He just entered the studio. Roy Rogers Hoff. He hasn't missed a show in 23 years, Fred. First time he's been late, but he's here.
Well, that's great.
He's breathing a little heavy. I bet he ran all the way from home. You know, he lives on the north side.
Yeah.
Well, he's here, Fred. So we can get down to business now. Roy Rogers Hoff. Are you in relation to any of them cowboys, Roy? No? Okay, I'm just checking. All right, Fred, well, tomorrow is election day.
Right on.
And you know, Fred, I was looking over the ballot, and I found a familiar name on there. You know it?
Don Brill.
No? Chuck Lee.
Chuck Lee?
Yeah. So we're going to get a close-up here, and I'm going to show a sample ballot. And we're going to have to, as Roy Roger Hoff frantically runs to the camera.
I don't know where you found that because...
There. Okay, now, I hope that's just a little more, Roy. Back
Oh,
off
U.S.
just a little more.
Taxpayers
There.
Party.
Okay, this is a sample ballot,
Yeah,
Fred.
and you're on there.
This is a sample ballot. And in a primary, Fred, this is one of the states that has one of those kind of primaries where you can only vote in one party. And it's very important if you're going to vote in this election and get your vote to count. We'll show you right there. Okay, we'll start with this part right here. Now, see, this will be on the first page of your ballot, at least in the city of Eau Claire. Now, these are the different parties running, 6 of them. Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, New Progressive, U.S. Taxpayers, and Independent. Now, for your votes to count, Fred, there's some fine print up there that says you should declare what party you're going to vote in.
Yes.
And that's why you take your line and you run it through there. For an example, make those 2 lines meet and make an arrow pointing to U.S. Taxpayers Party. Now that way, it'll count.
What do you want to? What if you want to vote in the Republican primary?
We're going to go to
You're
the ballot
drawing
itself.
the line across the Republican.
We're going to go. I'm doing this, Fred. We're going to do a ballot ourselves. This is a sample ballot. Now, under U.S. Taxpayers Party, if you're going to have just the taxpayer, if you want your ballot not to be soiled, of course, inside the city limits, Fred, they will give you more than one chance. The computer will kick out your ballot if it's not done properly.
Mm-hmm.
If you declare like Republican and then you vote straight U.S. taxpayers, it's not going to add up to 100 and it'll get tossed out. So, I'll give you a sample ballot here, taking U.S. Taxpayers Party ballot. Statewide, for governor, there's somebody running, so you'd run a line through that. For lieutenant governor, there's somebody running. For Secretary of State, there's somebody running. And you get down here, and just think, Fred.
Yes.
Under congressional, there's my name. If you want to vote for me, you got to stay strictly U.S. Taxpayers Party ticket. You can't vote for me and then jump over there and vote for Bob Welch, or vice versa.
So you want to stay the other side and vote for Bob Welch.
Uh-huh. So as an example, if you want your ballot to count, you don't want them tossed out and thrown in the paper can tomorrow night. You want to make sure that you stay within your party, whether it's Democrat, here we are again, whether you're going to stay Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, New Progressive, U.S. Taxpayers, Independent. If you want your votes to count, you got to stay within the one you declare. Because it says in fine print here, Fred, if you wish to designate your party preference, complete the arrow to the right of the party of your choice. If you designate a party preference, only votes cast for that party will be counted. If you do not designate a party preference and vote for candidates of more than one party, no votes will be counted, Fred. So you can't just jump all over the place. And this is a 2-sided big ballot this time, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of room to write in your favorite friend or neighbor, especially on the U.S. Taxpayers Party one. There's something like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. There's probably close to 20 different races. And you could write in people you got to make sure, Fred, you stay within your own party. That's confusing. Every 2 years this happens, Fred. Confusion happens in this state every 2 years. I guess there's only 3 states in the Union that have wide open primaries where you can jump all over the place. Most of the states are even stricter than Wisconsin. So be leery of that, Fred. And I'm not talking about Timothy Leary. I'm talking about being leery on the ballot.
Yes.
So that your vote counts.
Got to remember Leary there, because that's Mrs. Leary, Leary's cow kicked over the lantern and burned down Chicago.
That's what she said. Okay, Fred. Back to Stump the Stars. I know that you're batting 1,000 and it's getting ever so harder to trip you up. But I think I got you this time, Fred. I think I've got you this time. The year, it's 1847. You should remember this. The date, September 14th.
1847?
September 14th. Probably about 9 o'clock in the morning. Troops are all polished, lined up in a row. They're down in Mexico City. American forces have just occupied Mexico City. There's a young captain who ends up leading the South in the Civil War. Who is it?
Well, that was probably General Lee.
That's right, Fred. Robert E. Lee was a young captain down in occupied Mexico City. Which leads us, Fred? I'm glad you brought this up today, Fred, because it leads us into occupation.
So he wasn't a relative of yours, was he?
Well, most of the Lees came from 4 different families that came over from the old country, wherever that was. And a lot of them settled in Wisconsin, but some of them settled places like Virginia and in the South. Robert E. Lee could have very well led the Union forces. He came out of
West Point.
And I think he was asked to lead the forces, and he declined. But that's how highly he was thought of by the President of the United States at that time. So anyway, Fred, why I'm bringing this up is occupation forces and what's going on today. We've got our foreign legions all over the world, mapped out all over the place. Can you name a few countries we're in, the foreign legions, the paid armies of the United States?
Well,
the mercenaries.
we have some in Georgia. We have some in the Ukraine.
Talking about Georgia, Russia.
Georgia, Russia, right. The Ukraine.
We just
in
had
Africa,
some in Somalia. I don't know if
in Africa.
we
Yeah.
still got a force there, or are they all gone now?
I don't really know, to be
We've
truthful.
had them in Lebanon. We've got
Yes.
250 of them killed there real quick.
And there's plans to send troops into South Africa in case there's a rebellion or anything there.
Well, as a matter of fact, the United Nations, didn't they build a great big new airstrip down there? And
And on the north, just north of South Africa.
isn't that convenient, Fred, to fly in multinational troops? But anyway, Fred, what I'm getting at...
In other words, if the people wanted to get rid of the communist Mandela, the United Nations would come down there to keep them in power, just like we're going into Haiti to put back a communist, a renegade priest, one who was suspended from his order and defrocked by the Vatican for promoting class welfare, and we're going to put him back in there again so he can promote some more class welfare.
Well, Fred, as I've said all along here for several months now, this is just an attempt. That's what I was getting at by occupation forces. The last time we got entangled in Haiti, it took 20 years to get our troops,
23 years, I think it
to get our troops back out of there, back in the 30s.
Right.
And it's easy to get into these places, and it's very hard to get out.
Very true.
As a matter of fact, look what happened in Iraq the other day, the friendly fire that killed, they shot down the helicopters. Now, that guy was just doing his duty, helping the Kurds up there. And what's he get? What, 26 counts of murder against him? First time in who knows when that somebody doing their duty has been charged with the murder because he mistook that for a foreign helicopter and ended up being friendly. In those split-second decisions, Fred, you have to make up your mind.
I know.
You know, but they were ordered to shoot down anything that moved up there, above that parallel. And below that parallel is the same thing in the southern part of Iraq.
Well, it's too bad that they didn't let them know that they were coming down, and that could have been averted, so there was a foul-up in the communications.
Well, anyway, Fred, the United States military has become the hired guns of the world. I think it's a way of us paying off the foreign debts that we owe. We just come in with our troops and mop up spots around the world. And
Well, I don't believe that we should be in a lot of those places.
now this supposedly multinational force that Clinton's putting together, like Trinidad and Tobago, boy, there's a big country.
Yeah.
A lot of power down there. And some of these others, Jamaica's the biggest one that they've been able to twist the arms to get them. Now, what do you think Haiti's going to think about Jamaica? Jamaica actually sends troops into Haiti. It's going to cause a lot of animosity down there. But anyway, Fred, the ships are 50 ships are circling Haiti, and we've got about 20,000 American boys and girls down there just itching to jump onto the beaches and attack.
You know, if we really wanted to do something, if we were sincere in the violation of human rights and standing up, why do we allow a country like Red China to kill hundreds of students in Tiananmen Square and don't do anything about it? We give them what a nation has to do to get the most favored nation status in trading with us?
Well, just next door to Haiti, we have Cuba, which has been violating. It's one of the worst violators of
right.
people's civil rights for the last 20 years. They are in the top 10 of the world violators of human rights.
But if it's the communists who are doing the violations, it's all right. But if it's an anti-communist putting those who are causing problems into jail or something like that, then we get all excited about it, like in Guatemala.
Okay, well, anyway, Fred, in Haiti, you brought it up earlier about Aristide. He is a defrocked priest. He was with a special order down there, and
Salesians.
And he ordered his cutthroats to go out into the streets, and they ended up killing over 100 people in one night in one of their classic examples of necklacing and pulling people out of shops and murdering them.
He reportedly was in the crowd that went along, too.
Well, anyway,
Matter of fact, I saw a picture of him in the crowd.
he ended up writing a letter to Gorbachev bragging about that night of killing the 100 people and saying that he wished Gorbachev could have did the same thing over in Russia.
Well, I guess that's why we want to put him back in power, so he could.
Well, we've got a socialist in the White House who wants to put another socialist back into power.
He's not a socialist, he's a communist.
Yeah, he could very well be, Fred. Well, anyway.
You know, the ironic part about it is there are very few papers or publications that tell you the truth about Aristide and Haiti.
Well, you won't find much truth in the liberal press, Fred,
No.
unless you want to be, unless you like fairy tales.
They give us a sugar-coated view of what they want us to know.
You know, some political analysts read the European and South American papers to find out what's going on in America, because they don't find it out in the.
Well, there are some good publications here, too.
Mm-hmm.
Human Events is one, printed down in Washington. The Washington Times is pretty good, also down in Washington, D.C. And we got the New American Magazine. We got the Conservative Chronicles. What's the name of the other one there that advertises on Rush Limbaugh's program?
Yeah, I know what you mean, Fred. There are a few of them out there, but...
and some of the newsletters are very good. Now, Don McIlvaney has an excellent newsletter. Tells you what's happening, sometimes months before it happens.
Yes, he's the one that told us that Rush Limbaugh was just a front man for the Republican Party. He does a pretty good job out there trashing Clinton every time he gets on, but you never hear him going after Republicans very much. But anyway, Fred, as a matter of fact, the same people that were behind George Bush's advertising, was it Roger Ailes?
Mm-hmm. You know, that light should be on over there, and it isn't.
Yeah, well, might have burned out, Fred. Well, anyway, we do have a phone here today. We are live, and the number is 839-5067. If anyone would like to call in, and I think we can get along without that light, Fred. You know, it gets hot down here in the
Yes, I know.
beautiful downtown L.E. Phillips Library.
I know.
And we're going to, hopefully somebody will donate one of them window fans. for those big box fans down here. To blow this,
You should have
air
told me
around
about
down there.
that sooner. I could have donated. I got rid of two that I had because my wife doesn't like them.
yeah, that's what I
I
hear.
liked them, but she didn't.
That's what I hear. Okay, Fred. Well, as you
Yes.
know, Fred, recently we had
We did?
a call, I think,
Oh,
recently, and so we're going to take it.
right.
This person's been waiting for several minutes, so we'll take their call and hopefully we get everything turned on right. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I was wondering why you picked the U.S. Taxpayers Party to run and not, like, Libertarians, the Democrats, the Republican Party to run on.
You talking to me or Fred?
Yeah.
Oh, I think Fred's setting this one out, isn't he?
Fred, are you a write-in candidate this time or what?
No, I'm not a candidate for anything.
He ought to be.
Well, you know, he ran for city council, what, back in the 20s?
No, back in the 80s.
Okay,
And,
yeah, he did run.
I
but-
came in number 4. There were four people running, and I come in number 4. So evidently, there were better qualified people than I who ran.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'll tell you why I'm running as a U.S. taxpayer. The libertarians, who are pretty close to anarchists, they believe that less government is best. Well, I believe in less government too, but the libertarians have embraced the legalization of pretty much all the drugs. At least that's what I understand. And now recently they've said that they would not. They're not too concerned about the homosexuals either, as far as pushing their lifestyle in the school systems or whatever. So that rules out the libertarians. The Democrats have been preempted by the special interest, Fred. That's pretty much who runs the Democratic
Well,
Party now. It's this
You
big
know, the
special interest group.
National Organization of Women,
That's one of them.
the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force.
It's another one, but it's a conglomeration of
yeah.
special interest groups more than it is individuals. The Republican Party is starting to go in that same direction now. They are showing more and more that they are interested in the large political action committees, and they have opened up what they call a big tent now to supposedly become the majority party. They've done fine without doing that. They elected 3 presidents in a row over a 12-year period from 1980 to 1992. They had 12 years of republicanism without opening up the big tent. But now they've said that they want to let anybody in, and they are catering, very seriously catering to the homosexual movement in this country, because the homosexuals average $40,000 to $60,000 a year income, and the Republicans like that money. They like that big money to flow in.
Average is over $55,000.
So they want that big money. So I'm upset, and I didn't appreciate their shift to the left here. And people like Steve Gunderson, a few other liberals in the Republican Party pointed the finger at the Christians and the conservatives and said, "It's your fault." Well, it's not. It wasn't the Christian and conservatives' fault. Ross Perot got in the race and took 19% of the vote. Pretty much all that vote would have went to Bush. It would have been a landslide for Bush over Clinton if Perot would have stayed out of it. So it wasn't the Christians and the conservatives that lost the 92 race for George Bush.
As George Bush lost the race himself, put on the poorest run that I have seen in years. The only one that might have outdid him was Tom Dewey.
So that's why I've
He
decided
pulled
that
the defeat out of victory.
I've decided to go with the U.S. Taxpayers Party. They are for less government. Now, to be realistic, they're not going to be able to change things in one term or change things today, but they want to reverse, like personally my own platform, I'm calling for a 10% across the board reduction in all federal types of taxes, income tax, excise taxes, taxes on tires, the whole works. You realize what 10% less money in the federal government's pocket and 10% more in your pocket would do to the economy? Why, it would go crazy, Fred. The country would really heat up. They'd have to start worrying about inflation again. There would be such a boom. So, the U.S. Taxpayers Party is for less government, but they're also for the Constitution and bringing back constitutional principles and rights and protecting those principles, like gun control. The U.S. Taxpayers Party is 100% pro-gun, but They're not for vigilantes in the streets running around with guns. They're for um, the right to keep and bear arms, Fred. When you dial 911 and it's busy, or you...
A social worker?
Yeah, you get a social worker who wants to
Send
talk
a
to you.
social worker to help you there.
If you want, they want to talk to you about how it feels good to get your face smashed in by somebody breaking in the door or something, then call a social worker. But if you want to protect your house and your home and your family from somebody who's kicking in the door, then you want to have a AK-47 or whatever it takes. So that's just a few of the reasons why I think the U.S. taxpayers party is the way to go. And a lot of the Republicans are wimping out. They're not the party that's confronting the liberals and the socialists in Washington anymore. They want to go along and get along.
Six senators gave Clinton the victory who were Republicans, but they were 6 liberal senators.
Yeah, and it was the Republicans that switched over on this latest crime bill.
That's what I refer to.
The $33 billion boondoggle that is going to try and buy votes this fall with all these fancy little programs in each district that everybody said, you give me this bridge or you give me this addition to this college or whatever in my district and I'll vote for your crime bill. And it ended up just being a big pork barrel. So that's another reason why they're losing their principles. The Republicans, since they're not in the White House, they should be the opposition party, Fred.
I agree. I
I
agree with you on putting on a more aggressive fight on instead of going along with the Clinton socialist program.
Right.
Well, that sounds almost too good to be true with the U.S. Taxpayers Party. And wish you good luck.
Okay, well, thanks a lot.
There's 1 on 2.
Okay, we'll take another call here. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
How long has this U.S. Taxpayers Party been around?
In Wisconsin, roughly since 1993 was their first state convention, and before that, in 1992, we had a presidential candidate running as an independent in Wisconsin. So it's just in the last 2 years that the party has gotten off the ground in this state.
Just from Wisconsin, anywhere else?
Yeah, like in California, there's over 300,000 members. Nevada's got a giant independent U.S. taxpayer party out there. They're fielding candidates all the way from the U.S. Senate to governor, Congress, all the way down to county clerk. They're really organized there. Last time around, I think they were in about 30 states on the ballot. This time they're shooting for 50 states for the presidential election in '96, and probably will be a major force in that election because it looks like Ross Perot is going to run as a Republican in the presidential primary. So we will probably become the major third party by '96.
How'd you get on the ballot?
Well, I had a sample ballot here earlier. It's the United States Taxpayers Party is a bona fide Wisconsin party. There's only 5 bona fide parties, and we're one of them. And I am on the U.S. Taxpayers Party ballot in the election tomorrow. Say it takes 10,000 signatures in the state of Wisconsin to form a party and be a bona fide ballot. Otherwise, you have to run as an independent. But once you become a major party, then you have to maintain a certain amount of votes to stay on the ballot. I think we have to get 1% of the vote in November to remain a bona fide party on the ballot. All the parties have to do that. Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, all of them have to maintain that status.
Yeah. Sounds like that 10% cut, that sounds like a pretty good idea in federal taxes. But
It's not that much, but it's a start. I mean, we could go in there and tell you that, or I could tell you now that we want to eliminate a third of it, and eventually we do. But when somebody's hooked on heroin, you just don't jerk the needle out of their arm. You wean them off of it, in most cases. And the federal government is a government of addicts, and their drug is the federal tax system. And to wean people off that, or wean our government off that, it's going to take a few years. I think a 10% cut every year for 4 or 5 years, and it would just totally, the country would go crazy. You'd see massive building everywhere. It would be it'd be amazing how much money that would put back into the state and local governments and back into people's pockets. Where it belongs, states' rights. That's basically what states' rights is. The government has decided they're going to take the lion's share of the taxes to redistribute wealth, which is one of the part of the Communist Manifesto is redistributing the wealth, taking your pocket and giving it to somebody else. So our party's for more of keeping it in your pocket to begin with instead of shipping it out to Washington.
Well, if you got it, what do you think the chances of that ever happening would be?
You know, in my race, the U.S. Congress race, the chances are very good. It's going to be a three-way race after tomorrow.
What's the chances of you getting in, the chances of a 10% reduction in federal taxes?
Well, I will introduce the bill, and hopefully we'll discuss that with other congressmen and women, and we'll go from there. I'll keep introducing it. As long as I keep getting reelected, I'll keep introducing the bill.
Good, all right.
And that's just one of many bills I want to introduce. I want to introduce a family farm preservation bill to help family farmers. And part of that would be to have funds available for 100% pure organic farming. You know, earlier today on Public Access there was a video on the pesticides and stuff that are poisoning the crops that we put in that we eat.
And our water system.
And poisoning the water after it rains so many times that gets down into the water that we eventually drink. Some of those pesticides don't break down; they just go right into the system. Cause a lot of major problems with birth defects, and so we need to work more on organic farming. And we definitely need to save the family farm. We're losing several farms a day right here in Wisconsin with no help from Congressman Steve Gunderson. He seems to have lost touch with reality. And do you know that all the prices of milk in this country are based on Eau Claire, Wisconsin? It's a stupid program, but the farmers in this area get less for their milk than the farmers in California because of the distance. It's just one of the things that Gunderson's had 14 years to correct, and he hasn't corrected it. But I'm definitely for the small dairy and grain farmers. And I want to see a program again. You know, Fred, during the Revolutionary War, men were offered $20 and 100 acres if they would come and fight for freedom from England. Well, I'm not asking people to fight. I'm asking people to liberate some of this land up in government, and let's get it back into people's hands and start some of these small farms again. 200 acres and some equipment. That's not much more than 100 acres and $20 cash. That's what they got 225 years ago. So we can start nurturing these young family farms again, and use retired farmers as mentors, like the senior citizens do with small businesses, Fred. You take somebody that's retired that's been a banker or that's had a small business, they can help somebody that's just getting into business by giving them pointers and ideas on how to run a business properly. Well, we need the same thing with farmers.
Right.
We need older farmers showing the younger ones how to get into it, because if you're not raising a whole generation of farmers that want to stay in farming, eventually you won't have any farmers. And they still are the cornerstone of this nation, and they create the breadbasket that feeds most of the world, and that feeds our country. So, I would like to, if you have another question, we've got several other callers waiting to get on.
That's all right, thanks.
All right, thank you. We got another call, Fred?
Yes, line one.
You know, Fred, it's just like getting a tan under these lights. We've got 2, 4, 6, 7 lights today.
Right.
It really heat up under here.
Okay.
Okay, caller, you're on air. Go ahead.
Captain Fred, have you ever had anybody that challenged this ballot for tomorrow? You know, the way it looks, we have to vote straight party lines. I've never been one to do that. If I wanted to vote for Chuck Lee and, say, for instance, Sheriff Hewitt and Senator Zine, my ballot would be thrown out the window. Is that legal? That seems like a shortening up of the freedom of choice here.
Well, this is a primary, and it's only in the primary that you can't do this. You can vote for others during the regular election.
What this actually is, it's a primary for each political party. So it's a party cat dog fight between the individuals running in each party. Like in the Democratic race, you got you got 2 people running for the 68th Assembly District. Well, it's a party it's basically set up for each party to pick their own candidate, and it's not really an election. It's a primary before, it's a mini election for the parties before the general election in November. And maybe it's unfair, but on the other hand, if you open it wide open like 3 states have done, then 10,000 Democrats could jump over and vote for the weakest Republican, raid the Republican Party, cause havoc there, and possibly put the weakest Republican on the ballot in November. So that's why they have it segregated like this, so that the parties can fight amongst themselves to pick the person that they want to represent that party in the general election in the fall.
Yeah, now, would this prove to be favorable for you? Because there's going to be a lot more Democratic people, a lot more Republican people out there, and it may not look good for you then. I mean, you'll probably get low numbers because you're new.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that my numbers won't look that good in the primary, but I don't have anyone running against me, and so there's not that much interest in my race now. On the Republican side, you got a very hotly contested race between Brill and Gunderson. It's a David and Goliath thing. It's $250,000 that Gunderson's using against family values that Brill's using, and so in that race, it's hotly contested. In the Republican U.S. Senate race, you have 4 candidates that have really fought it out. So in the primary, I'm not expecting to pull a lot of votes because I'm going to be on the November ballot no matter what happens tomorrow.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's what I was afraid of. I thought maybe the guy that was starting out and just learning the game would get squeezed out. But, well, I appreciate you explaining that to me, Chuck.
Okay, so vote your conscience tomorrow. And if somebody does want to vote straight U.S. Taxpayers Party and do a writing like Fred, maybe somebody wants to vote straight U.S. Taxpayers Party and vote you in and put you in for sheriff. You know that if you're wrote in here for sheriff, vote for one. The way I read this, you'll be on the ballot in the fall.
Well,
Sheriff.
It's something I don't really want.
Sheriff Fred Stafford. I can see it now. I can picture it now.
We already got another fellow sheriff here. Sheriff Bob used to be on television.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, I think we had another call, Fred.
You do?
Yeah.
You also have this, too.
Yeah, no, we got a few more. We dealt with one of those issues, but we'll go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, what do you guys know about the BCH they're putting in milk?
Well, I am definitely against it. As a matter of fact, I testified a couple of weeks ago in a state consumer affairs, state agriculture, I think it was Consumer Affairs Division, had hearing statewide. They had one in Eau Claire, and I testified that the way they want to set it up now, they want to label all your milk products to say that they are BGH free. And I testified coming from the exact opposite, saying, why don't you label everything that says this product contains BGH? Why put the onus on being BGH free? I mean, the RBGH is a synthetic.
Why are you opposed to BGH, Chuck?
Well, there's a lot of problems with that, Fred.
Right, that's
A lot of problems with that. A lot of problems with that BGH stuff, and it's integrity of the product, Fred. I mean, it's integrity of the products when you walk into a grocery store. Are you going to buy that product because you trust it, or you're going to buy it because you don't? You're not going to buy it because you don't trust it.
Well,
especially with milk products.
Is BGH good for you?
Well, it's not good for the cows, Fred. I've read articles that say that it's kind of like crack for cows. It speeds up their metabolism. Sometimes their metabolism gets going so quick, so fast that they get ruptured blood vessels and bleed to death internally. And
What about children? Is it bad for children?
well, BGH is a substance that is naturally occurring within cattle. RBGH is a synthetic form of that, which is injected straight into the bloodstream. It doesn't work in a cow unless it's injected into the bloodstream. And supposedly by mixing that chemical with a more rigorous feeding program, you produce more milk. Well, some of the farmers are saying, what's the use of producing more milk when milk prices are so low now that we can't stay on the farms? Plus, we're losing the integrity and the trust of the consumer because they won't buy our product because of the fears of the BGH in milk. So, what's happened in Wisconsin, fortunately, is only between 2 and 5% of the farmers are even using this. Now, my opponent in the fall election, Steve Gunderson, has taken large amounts of political action money from a company called Monsanto. Monsanto just happens to be the only company that's allowed to sell the RBGH for injection in the state of Wisconsin, and from what I understand, nationwide at the present time. So it's in their favor to spread that money around, and I guess they've also tried to belittle farmers that won't go along with this Monsanto program of getting that into the cattle. But there are reports now of cattle dying. Now, it's going to take a while to see what effect this has on human beings.
Because I have a 2-year-old and I have a baby on the way, and who's to say that they don't test this good enough and it could turn out to be cancerous or something else if they don't test things good enough.
Yeah, I would suggest that you breastfeed. I wouldn't be.
So you can't breastfeed somebody who's got teeth.
Yeah. Well, make sure you're getting the RBGH free stuff. Don't buy the other stuff because there's too many question marks with it, and especially with infants, you shouldn't be giving them any kind of chemicals.
Schrader's Dairy advertises that they have BGH-free milk.
And there's enough fear out there that a lot of the school systems now are making sure that they buy the RBGH. They changed, in fact, to confuse you now, they're changing to RBST. Kind of confuses you. It makes you think, well, the BGH must be gone. But Monsanto is trying to promote it as BST now instead of BGH. But they're the same thing. So don't be fooled.
I also wanted to congratulate you on your theory for the marijuana thing. I don't think that should be legalized either.
Well, I'll tell you, we've got a heroin epidemic right now that runs circles around anything that marijuana can ever do to you physically. And people are dropping like flies in New York City. The heroin is so pure that's coming out of Afghanistan. And our Steve Gunderson has given billions of dollars to Russia. Well, our Russian friends are smuggling that stuff out of Afghanistan into Russia, through Europe, and then it comes right into the United States. We've got an heroin epidemic developing very rapidly in this country that's already killed over 13 people in New York City. It's because the stuff is 99% pure. When you inject something like that into your system, you just go into convulsions and die very quickly. And that's what's happening because of the purity of it, and the reason it's so pure is because the intelligent addicts, which there are millions of now in this country, cut the stuff. But somebody that's just trying it for the first time or is inexperienced will inject that pure stuff, and it's curtains for them. So you have to make a distinction between marijuana and heroin and cocaine because these are individually different drugs. LSD is a psychedelic drug. There's still people in mental institutions over that stuff, but that's different than marijuana.
I know.
Marijuana has a record going back thousands of years. LSD has a record of about 50 years.
I know a fine young woman who took, after smoking marijuana for a little while and drinking, somebody induced her to take LSD. She hasn't been able to work or do anything constructive ever since that happened.
Yeah, marijuana, cigarettes, and alcohol have kind of become the introductory drugs in this country into more lethal drugs. So we have to have a separation of the severity of the penalties on these drugs, but we shouldn't just be having wholesale legalization either because there's too many negatives involved.
Especially with the children going to school and people trying to sell it to them. And I mean, this society is just really terrible.
Well, it used to be the kids would smoke a cigarette. Remember when I was 12, stealing my dad's unfiltered cools and taking one behind the house and smoking one and about turning green and dying from it. But now these kids are sneaking around in corners on the school grounds and smoking joints, and people are trying to sell them crack cocaine and trying to get them to deal with stuff because they're minors and won't get arrested. So it's a whole new ball game than what it was back in the early 60s when this whole drug thing came upon us. And we're reaping the results of that now. We're into our third generation of people that are drastically being affected by the drug culture. First generation that was large amounts of people all at once was the 60s. Then our sons and daughters that grew up in the 80s, and now they're having children that are addicted, that are coming out of the womb addicted to heroin and crack cocaine and showing birth defects from all the various drugs. So third generation of people being affected by this now, Fred. So it's we've got some major problems out there. We cut off all the drugs coming into this country right today, which we have a massive amount coming in. A lot of people, from lawyers and doctors and elected officials, all the way down to laborers, what have you, are involved in the drug trafficking. If we cut it off today, it would take 20 years for it to work its way through the system and get back to some semblance of normalcy in this country from what the drugs have done to this country over the last 30 years. So are you still there or are you gone?
Oh, I'm still here.
Okay. So what was the question again?
No, I said that I don't think that marijuana should be legalized because you know, I'm afraid for my children to go to school when it comes that time because of all the stuff that society has going on nowadays.
Pendulum seems to be swinging back and forth on the marijuana. I remember one time back in the 60s, it was a 10 to life felony. Then it kind of swung down to where even in Alaska you could carry an ounce around legally, and now seems like the pendulum's swinging the other way. But the tougher you make it on some of these more recreational drugs, the more prisons you got to build. And I can see where we could be using that space for more important things than locking up
Right.
hundreds of thousands of young people that are experimenting with marijuana. So, I think we have a few more calls, and I appreciate you calling in today. And
Thank you very much.
okay, thank you. All right, Fred, what?
I got something here I think is very important. And this is from the Wanderer, a Catholic lay paper from St. Paul.
Okay, Fred, we got 4 calls, so we got
Right.
read just one paragraph.
Under a gay jobs bill considered in the U.S. Senate, Christian businesses such as radio stations, bookstores, and even Christian schools will be forced to hire homosexuals or face federal lawsuits and the possible of substantial fines or extinction, according to Patrick Truman, director of the Government Affairs for the American Family Association, a pro-family organization such as the American Family Association, Boy Scouts of America, would not be exempt from the law. And that bill has been introduced in Congress.
I understand, Fred, also that they could come in. Is there going to be exemptions for Christian and religious organizations in that?
No,
Say somebody wants to come in, they've got a private Christian school, they can come in and teach.
no, it says that they will be able to go into the schools.
They used to have an exemption on most of that stuff, I guess.
Yeah, but this one lacks that.
Uh-huh. Well, that's unfortunate, Fred. Okay, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Over here.
BGH, are farmers, when the cause, like their blood vessels rupture or pus comes up
Yeah.
or whatever, that's negligence on the farmers, isn't that? They use the BGH the wrong way, right?
Well, at least one of the cows that have died, Monsanto paid to have a autopsy done, and the results were inconclusive exactly what the cow died of. But mastitis is one of the warnings right on the side of the RBST, RBGH label for the chemical that is injected into the cow. There's warnings, several warnings on the label, and that's one of them. I think the name of the product is Prosolac, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but mastitis, which is infection within the udder, is one of the side effects of injecting that stuff into the cow's bloodstream, which has to be treated with antibiotics. And once you start pumping a cow full of antibiotics, and then if they're put back on the milking too soon, that antibiotic gets into the milk and either contaminates the whole load and they have to dump the whole load, or it slips through into a cheese product or something. You get those antibiotics, you eat those antibiotics, and then when you do need a good strong dose of antibiotics, your body has grown accustomed to those antibiotics, and their effectiveness, they're not as strong and not as effective.
You develop an immunity to
Yeah,
that.
your immunity to that, just like some of the penicillins that we've become immune to.
I find it kind of hard to believe that anything like that would get through with all the tests that farmers have for their milk. And
Yeah, I've talked to some of the companies that buy the milk, and they said they would catch it. But there is a possibility that, say Mexico now with the NAFTA, they could be pumping them cows full of that stuff down there, and it gets across the border through not just milk but other kind of dairy products, and ends up on our shelves. We don't know what kind of chemical they're using in that foreign milk.
I can see that happening down there, but
And California,
it's happening in Wisconsin.
California milk is coming into Wisconsin too. If you didn't know that, we're actually importing California milk into Wisconsin, which
Know that.
which is very unusual. We're the dairy state. So there are some problems with it. It's too bad that Monsanto just decided to spread the money around very thickly and heavily to politicians to get it pushed before it was properly studied.
It seems like something like this would have to, well, I don't know how long it's been on the test market or whatever, but I mean, even like cures for diseases are still being tested after 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
BGH is going to be going into probably, if it was used by every farmer, it'd be going into 99.9% of every American there is. So.
Yeah, and that would probably drive the price of milk down too, because right now the price is low and production is very high. There's being more produced than ever, at least in Wisconsin. And you can't maintain this level forever unless you find new avenues to sell the stuff. And if the whole country starts using BGH, it's going to 10-15% production increases. It's going to cause reduction in the price that the farmers get for their milk. So I think we only got time for one more call, caller, so I got to go to the next call number off the air.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, Chuck and Fred, how are you guys doing?
Okay.
All right, well, hey, I'm just a student here at Eau Claire, and me and my roommates have got the cow report a couple times. I'm real excited to be on the cow phone today.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Well, got a couple questions for you. What do you guys think about the Vikings-Packer rivalry this year? Half of us are Vikings fans, half of us are Packers fans in the house. So,
Oh, well, I'm kind of 50-50 myself. I'm for both teams, except when they're playing each other. Then I just stay neutral because I like the Vikings and the Packers, and I hope they both get into the playoffs.
And I hope that the Packers get in the playoffs.
oh, come on, you know, that's pretty wimpy there. Take a stand.
Yeah. Well, we only got one more minute left, caller, so we got to take.
Okay, well, hey,
Like I say, I'm for both teams. I like them both.
fair enough. I also enjoy steak, but I also enjoy tipping cows. So,
Okay.
have fun, guys.
All right. Thanks a lot. See, there you have it, Fred. Go ahead, caller.
Chuck, I'd like to congratulate you guys on an excellent program today. It's very informative.
Thank you.
Such a relief to not have these so-and-sos calling in with sexual innuendos on you guys. Appreciate the good work.
All right. I think we appreciate you, the viewers, watching, Fred. You know that the viewers are most important program,
That's all, right?
are most important to our program.
Here's the rest of that. You asked a question before. A pedophile seeking employment in a daycare center or for profit, a Christian preschool would clearly prevail in the lawsuit under the Act if denied employment because of his particular sexual orientation.
Okay, well, Fred,
That's the truth.
we're down to 15 seconds, so we got to say goodbye. My clock in here is a little bit off, but my hand watch is just right on time. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to vote tomorrow. Vote straight party lines. Don't be jumping all around, or because out in the boondocks, your ballots are going to be thrown out because they don't have those fancy schmancy computers. So we'll see you again right here on the Cow Report next week. And I think we're on the grand opening of the fall season, Fred, 9 p.m.
And for those who are Republicans, be sure to vote for Bob Welch, Don Brill, and Helmut Fritz.
How much did you get paid for that endorsement? Okay, thank you.
And Laufenberg in the 68th Assembly District.
Thank you, and good afternoon.